All point of views expressed on Shop Talk 360 are solely the point of views of the individuals and do not represent any company, organization, or group. Shop Talk 360, the industry's dedicated platform for commercial design, construction, and facilities. With more than 25 years building for national retail brands, an award-winning and best-selling author, keynote speaker, industry coach, and event producer, here's our host of Shop Talk 360, Grace Daly.
Hey, Shop Talkers. Welcome to our show. Very excited to have join us a mystery guest. It's been a while since we've had a mystery guest join us, so very, very stoked. This mystery guest has an incredible background, and I'll let him share a little bit about his background, and then we'll go into the topic we'll be discussing. Mystery guest, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Grace.
Hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. I really appreciate your thoughts. Now, I've known you for a couple years now, and I've met you at an industry conference, actually. And you're so passionate about the industry and about what you do. So to remain anonymous, why don't you share with our listeners a little bit about your background without mentioning company names or without mentioning any chains you work for, any specific companies. But you've been in our industry a long time.
Okay, yes, I have a combined 35-plus year career in construction management, real estate development, retail, building out of retail and restaurant development. And 25 of those years has been spent in construction management, overseeing and being head of departments of construction design, store development, franchising, and purchasing. In my life, I can honestly say I've built everything from tree houses to penthouses and parking lots to skyscrapers. But my main focus has really been on retail, restaurant, like commercial segments of the industry.
Wonderful, yes. And I know you have built for some incredible brands as a senior executive. Now, let's just jump right into the questions. What was the biggest change you've seen throughout your career? And what do you think will be the biggest change to come in the next 5 years and the next 10 years?
Well, the biggest changes, I'll say, in the industry, and I would say that it stems from construction all the way through to retail and restaurant brands, is really in the loyalty of company to employee relations, which I've seen that area going in a negative turn, more so in the last 5 years than the last 15 years. And it's always common, in these areas that, there's changes, particularly in the real estate construction and design side. A typical employee length of tenure is maybe 4 to 8 years, maybe 8 years, and that would be on the very high end. But I'm seeing that change quickly. And now, as I've interviewed a lot of people for jobs over the last 4 or 5 years, and I look at their resumes, I'm seeing them changing jobs, not really so much by their choice as in they wanted to leave, but it was, the most common comment I get back when asked people about, they've changed a lot of jobs, in a short period of time. It's always come back to they just really didn't feel the company they were working for were either loyal to their employees or treated their employees that well. And so now the tenure is more like 3 to 5 years. And that's a significant change from the previous 15 years. Some of those changes come from slowdowns in just the segment of the industry they may be in. Restaurants are really going through a cycle again right now. Retail really got hit hard the last couple of years because of the online, being able to online purchase. And so a lot of retail shops are going out of business. Bigger chains, have gone through really major turnovers, like I can just think of chains like JCPenney's or, even Walmart went through a pretty tough time. So that's been the biggest change. Now, in other areas besides the employee relations, in the next 5 years, I'm seeing in the retail and restaurant segments, and really, not so much the office like commercial areas, but in retail and restaurant, I'm seeing rents. I'm going to be looking for rents to start coming down because vacancies are going to be rising. And again, a lot of that is due to the online buying and selling. I think that's going to leave a lot of vacancies. We're already seeing that in major malls around the country. Somebody called me the other day, and there was a lot of in the last 10 years, there was a lot of growth for outlet malls. And I had a friend of mine call me, and he was saying that one of the major malls in their area is vacant, and a college moved in it, and the college moved in because the rents were so cheap. And so I think that's going to be a trend of vacancies that you're going to start seeing, and I'm looking for, rents to start coming down. In most markets, there's some pretty significant markets where the rents are going to remain high and demand will be high. Let's see, another thing that changes that I think you're going to see in the next 5 years, with both industries in retail and in food, I think you're going to see, we're already starting to see, that catering and home delivery is becoming popular. Catering to major events or company events, and home delivery is like everybody's trying to jump on home delivery, and that's not only in the food industry. For years, home delivery in food industry was only certain types of food. Well, today you can get almost anything home delivered, but more and more companies are bringing that home delivery in-house, where they're going to be using their employees to deliver. I don't know how that's going to work out yet. It seems like it's a very tough area to get perfected. And so we'll see how the food industry handles it. With regard to retail, I mean, Amazon's proving it, and Walmart's now jumping on board, and every big retail box is going to have home delivery. Grocery stores have home delivery. So I think that's, we already know that's going to be a trend coming in the next, 5 years for sure. And what's going to be interesting is to see how do these companies perfect that.
Yep.
Now moving on to 10 years, I couldn't even begin to imagine where things are going to be in 10 years, because things are changing rapidly, more rapidly than I've ever seen before.
Absolutely. And just to jump back a little bit about what you said earlier about, the home delivery, not just food, not just catering, but home deliveries. That I know there's so much groundwork that's being laid down for these drone deliveries. That in itself is a whole.
Yes, that's
whole other.
I don't know how they're going to manage it, but yes, that's a great point. Some companies are doing it, especially in rural areas. I think that's where it'll probably start. I don't know how they'll manage it in cities, but 'cause I don't know how, I don't know how they're going to control all the drones that are going to be out there doing this. There's going to be a gazillion of them out there.
Sure, and I'm sure they'll have to have some sort of an air traffic type of process for these drones.
Yes, that's right.
But very, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. And just a funny thought, a horrible thought, but a funny thought, as my husband and I were just saying just the other day, like, how do we know that, in the future of these, like, drone type of deliveries, that drones won't be hijacked? I mean,
yeah, well, that's,
they're very good from one location to another.
That's correct. And, you always, just with home delivery to begin with, when companies outsource their delivery, they're at the mercy of who they're using to outsource to. So, there could be problems of theft and, or, just problems with a delivery person saying, oh, I made that delivery, but then the customer saying, well, I never got the delivery. Well, how do you prove it? And so I can see a lot of things that have to be worked out on all ends. And the drone thing is like, it's unimaginable to me how it's going to be regulated, but I guess we'll figure it out. It's coming.
Yeah, it's like Jetsons. Remember
That's
Jetsons?
correct. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm dating myself. Half the audience will be like, what? Who are the Jetsons? I'll have to Google that.
Yeah.
Now, and also, to jump 2 points back, you had mentioned that one of your friends and you were chatting about a mall, or rather, I think you said shopping center.
An outlet mall, yes.
An outlet mall, yeah, that was repurposed for a college, university, did you say?
Yes, that's correct.
So was that for dorms or dormitory, or was that for?
It was I guess classrooms and just university, and it was a satellite university, so it wasn't a major university. It's a major university that went into this area with a satellite complex.
Interesting. I do remember reading about a while back. I don't think it was in the States, but somewhere had a old abandoned mall that they repurposed into residential, which I thought was interesting.
Wow, that's different.
Yeah, I'm sure there was a whole kind of revamp with the interior, but still, I thought it was really interesting. Okay, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on the biggest changes. Now, next question, mystery guest. What do you feel the brand experience or the customer experience will demand of our industry in the next few years ahead?
Well, this is an area that's growing quickly and moving quickly, and it's a moving target. Social media, online ordering from in-store kiosks, and anything that can be added to speed up service in stores is going to be essential to the success, particularly in restaurants. Now, you're already seeing some stores, retail, they're doing a lot of, more in the lines of online ordering and in-store kiosk where they can request things to be brought up. But in restaurants in particular, I mean, it's going to be, the customer is going to demand that they have ease of ordering, and they can order online, they can order in the store without talking to somebody. We're already hearing about robots working in stores and in restaurants and things like that, and those things are developing. Another area that's going to be in demand by the customer is loyalty programs. And we've seen those grow in the last 4 to 5 years, but I think that it's going to be much more competitive in the future. Definitely going to be a factor in all areas, no matter where you go. Just think of, if anybody travels, there's loyalty programs for everything you can have associated with travel. Every restaurant you go in, most of them have a loyalty program. Well, they're going to become more and more and more competitive, I believe. The next thing that's going to be in demand, particularly in the food industry, is service. The customer experience has to be great, or you will not survive in a restaurant any longer. I think that it used to be if you just had a good food product, you could get by with pretty good service. Bad service is always a killer in any industry. But if you had above average service, not great service, but a really good product, you could survive. I think that's going away. I think that customers going forward, particularly the younger people, are going to demand great service, great food, and it's going to have to be a really good experience. It's going to have to be a unique experience. So those are a couple things with just the food area mainly in particular, but that's the customers. I call it the hands-on experience and what they actually experience in the store. But then I also like to talk about what the brand experience for the customer as they come into a restaurant or a retail store. It used to be that you would change a design. In the restaurant industry, it's customary that every 7 years. I'm not sure if the retail, it could be longer, maybe 10 years before you see major remodel rollouts. Yeah, that's correct. And I think retail's more, if it's a smaller store, they get by longer without changing their theme and their designs. But if it's a larger chain, well, they're changing departments constantly. But I think you're going to see that increasing, where that 7 to 10 years is now going to become 4 to 6 years, and probably more along the 4-year line. I think that restaurants are going to have to at least do what we refer to as refreshing the image midstream, where it used to be you could get by for 7, 8, 10 years in particularly in restaurant and retail. I see that increasing. The other thing I see with regard to designs that I believe, it used to be, particularly with exterior images and look, that if somebody got something that caught on and it was hot, well, then you would see a lot of brands doing copies of that, or, close copies. I think that's going to change. I think that the copycats are going to get called out in this industry. And you're going to have to be more unique inside and out and have something that is going to draw attention. And I don't know if it's just the culture or how the younger customers are what they're used to, but they want a uniqueness, and they want to be they're going to want to call their brands their own brands, and their uniqueness is not going to be the same as somebody else's. And I think there's going to have to be a really wide mix of what our designs look like coming up in the future. Brand recognition is going to have to be unique. I guess that's the way I call it. And I call this retail and restaurant revolution. It's going to be based on speed. How quick can they get in and out? It's going to be on discounts and loyalty programs, loyalty patrons, a unique look and feel, and all tied in with state-of-the-art. If you're not state-of-the-art coming up in the future, 5 years from now, I think you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, and to add to what you said too about the online ordering, and I guess this is a loyalty program as well. I recently read, I forget the number. It was a crazy number. Starbucks with their app, with their phone app,
Mm-hmm.
each month they have literally hundreds of millions of people that actually put in their drink order, their coffee order, whatever it is, ahead of time, and then they just swing by, pick it up, and I guess it just
Mm-hmm.
is charged to their phone, to their wallet phone or whatever account they have set up. But it's just so weird because it's kind of, it's interesting because you also mentioned too that service has to be great. And yes, I agree, service has to be great. But then it's weird because you have these setups where you don't have to have that direct person-to-person service interaction. So I guess it's almost like indirect service.
That's right. It's going to be
bizarre.
accuracy. It's got to be accuracy. That's the customer service that I'm talking about. Because just think of it, you place your order on an app, you expect what you get. Someone I was talking to, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, and they were asking me about their favorite older brands of restaurants. And we were at lunch, and they were talking about, and this guy was a president of a new chain.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I used to love this brand. He goes, but I just quit going. They couldn't get my order right. And this is a 25-year-old brand. And I said, I just thought that's going to be what kills your business is if you are no longer accurate because of this online ordering. People expect it because they're going to say, I put it into you in writing. It better be correct.
That's right. Accuracy. Okay. Very good point. Okay. Mystery guest. Now our next question, and this is a very sensitive subject, and we've talked about this offline before about roles and responsibilities of organizations to their employees. And you've shared with me some experience you've had or your colleagues have had in our industry when organizations grow too fast and there's less accountability for one department over another department. But share with me some of your thoughts on that, because from my experience, when companies grow too fast, and I've seen it with a couple of chains, regional chains.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that comes, there's actually three that come to mind, where they grow too fast and then all of a sudden there's a complete turnaround and then they're shutting locations down. And it affects,
That's right.
affects employees, affects people's livelihoods, families. I mean, so share a little bit with me about that, because I know we spoke about this offline before and you're very passionate about this.
Right. And now, before I get into each particular area that can be affected, this not only happens for companies that grow fast and fail, even companies that grow too fast, but they are successful, you can still have the same cultural things going on within the company. And a lot of it has to come, some of it comes back to how you treat your employees and the loyalty of the items I mentioned earlier. And when I've interviewed people over the years, and I've hired lots of different people in different jobs. And so it was a trend I started seeing in the last 5 years that the comments were the same. And so to start talking about this, I'll cover a few different areas that can be affected. When companies decide to grow, they put out projections and forecast, and they have to satisfy lenders. They have to satisfy the public, and if they're publicly traded, they're putting information out on their stock portfolios. And so when they are doing this, what I've seen over the years, they're putting out we must meet these targets at all costs and under any circumstances. And it's not that easy to do. Now, I say that good planning always will, take care of a lot of problems that can come up. But there's many things, and particularly in today's world in development of retail brands and restaurants and so forth, that there's many things that can hinder that growth, that that are roadblocks or hurdles that come up that can stop your growth. And some of them are internal and many are external. So I'll talk a little bit about the internal things. And you mentioned you can think of some brands, and I would think that, off the top of anyone's head, they can think of restaurant companies that open a lot of stores and then all of a sudden, they're closing. And they grew pretty fast. Well, there's three factors that can really affect those brands when they open and close quickly like that. One is just their planning was wrong, their business model was wrong, their numbers were wrong. That's number one. Or it could be their operations and their service just didn't meet customer expectations. Or they just didn't market properly. And part of marketing is finding out what your competition is, but also being able to capture customers that are already in someone else's brand or in their markets, and you're trying to take them away from other brands. Well, all those things can affect it. Any one of those things can affect, the failures of companies. And so in the planning area, you have real estate, which is leases and construction costs. Whether you own or lease your property, or you build a freestanding structure, or you rent an existing structure, or you go into a strip store lease area. And so being off on your cost or your business model where you're projecting a certain number of sales, but you didn't meet that number for whatever reason, well, those are things that can affect it. And as you're planning for that growth, when companies put out an aggressive growth program, well, the real estate people have to be able to go out and find locations. In many markets that are good markets, it's very competitive. So one could overpay, and that's usually what they do. They overpay for areas, or they just pick bad sites because they're trying to meet a quota. Now, what we've had discussions about along the areas of the development side, and particularly real estate, a lot of companies like to pay bonuses for finding sites. These are bonuses that are typically over and above company traditional bonuses that are based on company profit. And I don't really call them bonuses. I call them fees. So they're paying a fee to they could be in-house or outsourced real estate people to really write deals. And when you have an aggressive program in a region and you have to fulfill it because your company has put out to the public or to your lenders those projections, well, you're putting yourself at risk, particularly in today's world where, one, it takes a lot longer time to build. And I don't want to say build because construction times generally have been pretty steady no matter where you are. It's getting the approval process ahead of time and getting through that approval process in municipalities. That takes time, takes a lot of money. And so real estate people tend to be overly aggressive on deals and bringing in deals that are overpaid for. One sign that will indicate that that's going on, if someone's writing real estate contracts or leases, and to a landlord or an owner, and there's a number of backup leases come on top of that, you don't know what those backup terms are. And you don't know how many are coming in, but if you're hearing about it, it's pretty likely that you're overpaying. And it happens and I've known several companies who've run into problems where they didn't meet their sales projections and they had real estate deals, and when you really go look and examine it, they really overpay. And
so I'm sorry, help me understand this. So if I'm understanding correctly, when you say backup terms,
okay.
So the lease wasn't fully executed. So in other words, we didn't have a concrete lease in what we were getting and what we were paying. What we were getting upon possession and what we were paying until after.
So the way a backup typically would come about is somebody would, let's say company A, writes a letter of intent, and that's accepted, and they're proceeding along, and the deal looks like it's pretty good. It's gonna, they can get through approvals and get all their municipal approvals and zoning and all that. Well, if other companies are themselves on somewhat of an aggressive growth, they can write a backup lease or contract to purchase where if company A's deal falls apart, then their company steps into that place.
Okay. Well, and the terms can be entirely different.
That's right. And I've done this myself when I ran real estate. If a broker brought a piece of property or a building or a location to me, and I just said, wow, you're way too high. You're way too high for my business model. You're way too high for the market. And then he comes back and says, well, I've got it under lease. When I go back to check later and find out, okay, he just got it under lease. Well, knowing that he was asking a lot for it, I might write a backup thinking, party A there's no way they're going to pay that amount. They were just tying it up to see if it might work. And there's no way they're going to pay that amount. And I've had success of deals dropping out where I've become party B and they've accepted my deal. Well, that's an indication if there's backups coming on top of your deals, and brokers always let you know when there's backups because they're like, hey, don't drop out of this because I got a backup. They're going to take it. And, so that's an indication that you've paid too much for your property, usually. Now, if it's a really hot location, there could be 4 or 5 deals coming on. Same thing happens if you're buying houses or, you're selling houses. If it's a hot seller's market, you might get one deal and then have a backup. And the same thing happens in commercial, deals. And so that's an indication that you could be paying too much and probably are paying too much. Now, where I was leading with that is, when brokers and real estate managers and so forth are getting paid these bonus fees, well, they're trying to meet their quotas and they're writing deals. Well, if they don't really understand the business model, what they're writing deals on and presenting and getting approved by, for development, if you're not going to know for 18 months to 2 years that you brought in a property that in the business model wasn't matching up. Now, it may or may not be the fault of the real estate broker or the agent or manager or whatever. But it is a concern because they're churning deals to meet quotas.
Yeah, as opposed to churning deals for the business model.
That's right. If you're matching up to what the business model is, well, okay. Now, they're in every company, and I've been involved in, worldwide deals.
Mhm.
You do have to take some risk, especially when
Mhm.
real estate sites are not readily available. But you just have to be very smart about it.
Mhm.
And where I've had issues with the bonus fee program is that deals are getting written and forced through before others that really are the, boots on the ground people
Mhm.
understand the deal. And so once it's signed up and you've got money laid on the table, you're going to proceed with it. If you're a company, it's already budgeted. You're going to proceed with it. Where what I like to do is I like to offer that instead of companies putting out a yearly, here's how many stores we're going to do, make
Mhm.
it a range of stores and
Mhm.
say, we're going to be doing between this number. Here's our low, here's our high. Well,
Mhm.
Wall Street doesn't like that. That's, publicly traded companies don't like that.
Mhm.
Bankers
Mhm.
don't really like it. They like exact numbers. But in today's world, when business models change often, when you may have to adjust your building size or your menu or, your marketing, plans or your operational systems, all those things have to adjust by regions and by markets and by competition. And it's really tough to put out those projections.
Mhm.
Now, who gets hurt in all this when things fail
Mm.
are those very people that were the ones that make things work, the boots on the ground people. And those are the people that I care about. I care about the people that work
Yep.
underneath me. I've
Mhm.
always, hey, it's been great. I've made a lot of money and I've made good bonuses and, I've participated in a lot of successful deals and companies. And that's all
Mhm.
great. That's why I work hard. That's why I built my career. But when it really gets down to it, I'm out for the guys who made that happen for me, and that's the people that work underneath me. And those are usually the people that really, that's another thing that lends to what I said before about the tenure in companies being shortened to that 3 to 5 year period now. When companies fail or they have turnovers, a lot of CEOs have changed jobs in the last 2 to 3 years, more than I saw before happen this quickly. In the restaurant industry, for sure, there's a been a enormous changeover of CEOs in companies in a short period of time. Well, when you
Mhm.
have those kind of drastic changes, new people come in. Well, their theory is, well, let's clean house, or they had to clean house because the company had lost so much money they got to cut. And so, the people that really get hurt the most are the people that do the hardest work.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. To share a little bit with you, putting my retail hat back on. With my experience with real estate, I've been fortunate enough to work with chains where, they had it down to a science, and we rolled out stores like we were on fire,
Hmm.
and it was great. And I've had some experiences where, working with the real estate department where, and again, to your point, you don't know how profitable it can be until 18 months, 2 years down the line, until it cycles through. Where real estate folks will tell me, no, that's an A location, and in order to do that deal with this developer, this small owner, I had to take another 2 B locations around the country or whatever. So they wheel and deal, and they kind of do their thing. And the last thing I want to share too, I always remembered when I was doing cookie cut stores, building stores aggressively. I did over 500 in like a nice 7-year run. So that was a nice run. They're 1,500 square foot cookie cut locations going into regional malls, outlet strip centers. And down to a science. And I'll never forget when the new CEO came aboard, and this was when I was into doing it for over 5 years. He asked me, he was like, well, Grace, why do your construction costs vary so greatly, per square foot? And I'm like, well, because for the last 5 years, I've been asking for a vanilla shell, based on X amount of cost. That would just, flatline my construction cost per square foot. If you want to see my construction costs, just average out, then real estate has to start bringing in those vanilla box deals that I have given them, with my specs and my criteria. So my deals and like my costs are all over the place because real estate deals are coming in all over the place. As is, I'm building in food courts. I'm doing the demo and this deal. They're giving us a cold shell in that deal. They're giving us a vanilla box. And this. It's just all over the place. So very interesting. But I agree with you, and I hear you loud and clear that what you refer to, what the industry may refer to as bonuses for real estate folks. What you refer to as fees. It would be great if that could really be relooked at, where maybe part of that fee, a percentage of that fee, is based also on performance after 18 months. They don't get paid.
That's right.
They don't get paid up front, clean their hands off of the deal and walk away. And by the way, Tom, now, mystery guest, you know me, so I got my real estate license. So with that being said, I'm not trying to speak derogatory about any specific department, but I think it's just very, very important to be held accountable in every aspect of the business in every department.
That's correct. You've touched on a few different things, and we've talked about that tying it to performance of the location should be
like everyone else.
It's done.
Absolutely.
That's right. And a lot of companies do that. A lot of companies tie it to the profitability of their company before they pay out bonuses. But when companies are on a very aggressive growth program, well, they sway away from what should be. And I get it. Real estate people are deal makers. That's why you hire them. They are aggressive by nature, and they're going to go out and they're going to, every deal is a great deal. Okay. And it's up to smart growth and smart evaluation to determine, okay, what is really a great deal? Well, if you're getting too many backups written on every deal, you're paying way too much. That's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing you touched on was cost. And, I mentioned this a little earlier about the designs and what I see in the future. I think that you're going to see more and more brands, both retail and restaurant, that are going to be more custom one-off stores at every location. Mm-hmm. Some brands will always be, Starbucks was the same everywhere you went, or nearly the same, or like brands like some of the smaller sandwich companies, and they pretty well try to take that vanilla box and have the same prototype look. And a lot of retail places, like you can go into Walmart centers and you'll see certain retail outlets that are exactly the same in every single one. Well, those will always be those smaller chains or lower volume chains like that. But I think it's the mid-level and mid-volume chains that are going to have to be more unique. So it's going to be a more custom cost everywhere you go. And then you also have regional factors. I mean, it used to be, well, you could get pretty close in cost, but now by region or by state, I mean, the cost can vary just tremendously all across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah, wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts. It's a very sensitive subject, and I know you and I, we've been on the phone a while about this. So every time we're together, we can chat about this. So we'll see. We'll see how things evolve and continue to evolve in our industries. Okay, now real quickly for the next 5 minutes. Next question. 2 more questions. How can we learn from these experiences? And what do you think we can do better as an industry?
Okay, well, obviously, with regard to employee relations, I think it's going to be imperative in the future for companies to really make it a better experience for their employees. Now, with that, I want to be very careful because I could do a whole segment about being a bad employee. Okay, so I don't want to say it's all on the company, but I think building the employee relations is going to be imperative. And I'll just touch on quickly a couple of things. So that will help, we should all learn from, and develop in our companies. And the Walmarts of the world found this out. They started having bad, employee relations down to their stock people in their stores. And they had to make a change or they were going to lose hiring. They were not going to be able to hire at the scale that they have to. So career development opportunities is going to be, something that's going to have to be clearly identified. Typically you come into a company and you have a career in mind and you have somewhat of a direction, but I think that companies are going to have a very clear, precise development path. Now, larger corporations, real large corporations have this. It's the middle America businesses that's the restaurant and retail segment. That's going to have to be developed. Along with that, it's always feedback. What's the feedback? I can tell you, I'm not a person to worry about feedback. I've always said, well, what I do is going to speak for itself. And, but there's been times where I've gone for almost 2 years with very little feedback. And that will have to change in the future. People, especially younger people, have to have that feedback. And they have to know where they stand. Okay. I think that employees are going to have a chance to really contribute. Now, some employees don't want to contribute on a grander scale. They just want to come in, go to their desk, do their list of things they do every day and go home. But many employees want to do more. They want to have a chance to do more, and they just need the leadership of how to be able to do more. If they already knew how to do more, they probably wouldn't even be working for you. If they already knew how to be a leader, they'd be a leader somewhere else. But many employees don't want to be that leader. They just want to be a doer, but they want to be led how to get more involved. And I've seen some great companies, in this mid-sized company, in the middle size, the core of, what is, America, I say, is the mid-range companies. I've seen them do great jobs just involving their people. And I think that's going to have to be something that every company is going to have. Here's another thing, and this is a touchy subject, but I think companies are going to have to be more flexible. I can think of some people I just recently had dinner with that work in the beauty segment of the industry. And they were telling me how regimented their schedule is. And there's no flexibility at all. Now they're trained, highly trained on very sophisticated equipment like machines for doing beauty type things. And so they're in an area that takes a lot of training. And so they're not but they are generally hourly workers because that's the industry. But they're specialists but they have no flexibility in their schedules. And so I think you're going to be seeing in the future that companies are going to have to be way more flexible. I mean, if you think of it this way, if if you had to go take care of a matter at a city, let's say, or, I can't think of something, maybe like paying the tags for your car or something, and you can't do it online and you have to go and talk to someone in person, you only have a window of a certain amount of time to get there during the week. Well, if you have a very regimented schedule, you can't get there, or you have to take your Saturday and fight the rest of the crowd to go through it and get it done. So that's what I'm talking about. And it's just life. Life is more demanding. I think companies have to be more flexible. I think salaries are going to be playing into this. We're already seeing, minimum wage is going to be climbing. Well, good employees and really good employees are going to have to be paid well. So I think you're going to see salaries increasing over the next few years. It's been a while. It's been, salaries have really been kept down with the economy. Well, hopefully things will turn around a little bit and salaries are going to go up. The last item is benefits. And that's been really a tough one in the last 8 years, 10 years, where benefits are costing people out of their pockets. And benefits used to be exactly what they're titled. It's benefits. It's an advantage to working for somebody. Well, now it's become a cost. And that's going to have to change. And it's changing in some companies. Some companies are offering great benefits and great insurance plans and great retirement plans. And all those things are going to have to come into play, but I think they're going to get better and better, and you're going to have to be up with that to remain as a good company.
Yep, you bring up some very, very valid points. And also to reiterate, too, to add to what you said, I think it's so important that, especially nowadays with social media and so many folks working from a home office environment because they travel anyway, those companies that are not flexible or offering a flexible work plan, work schedule, they're going to lose a lot of good people. Because
that's a great point. And you worked in that industry where you have to travel.
Sure.
And companies have to take into account when people have to do that kind of travel. And what if you get a plane delay and you're stuck in an airport till midnight and you're getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, are you going to be so inflexible that if they're not there the next day at 8 o'clock sitting at their desk or on a conference call or something that, that's what employees get upset about.
Yeah.
And, that's just one example of many, many, many examples I could give.
Yep. And, that's a whole other discussion that we'll have for sure again. But yeah, and to read what you said too, it's leadership. And I put that in air quotes. I put that in air quotes because, you and I both know, mystery guests, there are some leaders out there that should not be in leadership roles. And it affects the culture of the company and it affects turnover, quick turnover, so it's all that energy flow and where it goes. But, okay, very, very cool. Now, last question to wrap up our podcast. What are you most grateful for or for in this industry or have had the experience in this industry?
Okay. Well, I have 3 and I'll make these quick. First, I've had the experience to work under some very, very successful CEOs and presidents of companies. And what I've learned from them, the things that I've taken from watching them operate and making decisions has been invaluable. I've seen some CEOs and presidents take some huge risks that paid off. Now, they were huge risks, and when you looked at them from the surface, it's like, oh, no, we can't not do that. But being part of how they came to the decision to take that risk and make the decision to go with whatever they were doing, that's been invaluable. So that's one thing. These are not in any particular order. The second thing, and it continues to be rewarding for me, I've worked a lot not all of my career, I've worked in various segments and various departments and divisions, both corporately and for franchise development in retail and restaurant and whatever. But one of the rewarding things that I'll take with me is helping franchisees start out maybe with their first store or growing from their first store to their third and fourth and fifth store and becoming successful business people and being successful franchisees. That has been really rewarding. And after all these years, I still get holiday cards or a holiday phone call from somebody that just remembered what I did to help them, and they thank me. And that's a reward, just that alone and carrying that with me. So that's the second thing. And the last thing, I'll wrap this up. I've helped a lot of people in their careers and not just working underneath me in different departments when I see someone that has potential and they're utilizing their potential to get ahead, I'll help them all day long in any way I can. And I have people that have worked for me that are now heads of companies. One of them in particular, and so a lot of them own their own companies now. One in particular is a CEO of a very successful chain, and they started out with me, and that is rewarding to me, to see them develop and grow, and just that I've had a part of that. So that's about it.
Very, very cool. Well, mystery guest, thank you so much for chatting with us this afternoon on Shop Talk 360. Looking forward to having you back on, and we'll pick another topic, sensitive or whatever the topic may be, and we'll chew the fat on that one as well. So Thank you so much. Really enjoyed our chat. And
I enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining Shop Talk 360. Real conversations in the commercial design, construction, and facilities industry. You can reach out to us at grace@gracedaily.com.